All right, let's put the women and children to bed and go looking for dinner. Jon Rothstein here on Inside College Basketball Now on CBS Sports Network. Want to remind you to subscribe to Inside College Basketball Now on both Apple and Spotify. We want to be your Bible for the college basketball season and beyond. We are the only college basketball podcast coming to you 52 weeks out of the calendar year. Also want to remind you to like and subscribe to Inside College Basketball Now on YouTube. We want to get up to 400 likes on this show, and a programming note, each and every Monday and Thursday, except for certain holidays during the 25-26 college basketball season, Inside College Basketball Now will be coming to you with live shows at 1 o'clock Eastern. And again, if you can't be with us at 1 o'clock Eastern, get with us on your commute home or during your early morning workout on Apple and Spotify. And in addition to these live shows at 1 o'clock on Mondays and Thursdays during the college basketball season, we will also be coming to you with additional episodes throughout the week with exclusive interviews with some of the biggest and best names in the sport. We need an army with us for each and every show here on Inside College Basketball Now, and we want you to be all you can be, and that's why we're coming out with a bang. Let's get to three big things. And the first big thing is going to hit on two teams, again, that have been at the epicenter of college basketball. Michigan last week looked very mortal. And Arizona, who is still undefeated, continues to be dominant. And that dominance is understated. Let's start with the Wolverines, who were beaten on CBS by Wisconsin on Saturday in Ann Arbor, 91-88. Last week for Michigan, the close win at Penn State and then a defeat on Saturday against Wisconsin reminded me a lot of a sequence of one of my favorite movies, Rocky IV. And I feel like what happened to Michigan last week was a parallel to what happened during the scene in the fight between Rocky and Ivan Drago when the Russian was cut. And it turned out to be a bad cut, as everybody knows. And, of course, Rocky won. Now, Michigan was dominating opponents at a historical level prior to last week. Michigan was ripping through opponents like a chainsaw through butter. The game on the road at Penn State sent up a flare. The game at home against Wisconsin, in my opinion, was disappointing from a defeat perspective. But to me, this is also something that we need to credit Wisconsin for more so than discredit Michigan for, because the facts are the facts. In an NCAA tournament setting, Michigan's two-point defense is going to travel each and every time. But when you look offensively right there at what Wisconsin did in Ann Arbor on Saturday, it was an elite offensive performance. 91 points scored on this defense. 45 of those points came from three-point range, and the Badgers shot an astronomical 50% from the field. Now, in order to beat a team like Michigan with this type of interior size, with this type of interior defense, you're going to have to go over the top of the defense. You have to go over the top because, as I talked about a little bit on last week's shows, from talking to coaches who have played Michigan, who are getting ready to scout Michigan, you cannot attack Michigan, according to a lot of coaches in college basketball, with traditional post-ups, with traditional drives. You have to get their bigs moving in the middle of the floor. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. The interior defense for Michigan, with the size and the length that this team has, reminds me a lot of what we saw from Kentucky during the 14-15 season when the Wildcats started Willie Cauley-Stein and Karl Anthony Towns up front at the 4 and the 5 and went 38-1 all the way before it lost to, you guessed it, Wisconsin in the national championship game. Now, I want to point out that prior to Saturday's game in Ann Arbor, Wisconsin had played top-tier competition, was blown out against BYU in Salt Lake City, was blown out the week prior against Purdue in Madison at the Kohl Center, also lost a game in Milwaukee to Villanova, also lost a game to TCU in San Diego. Wisconsin had struggled to get a marquee victory, but Wisconsin, thanks to a tremendous shooting performance, got what to me was unequivocally the biggest win we've seen so far during the 25-26 season. And again, to beat a team like Michigan, to score 91 points against a team like Michigan, you are going to have a breathtaking offensive performance, and you're going to have to get contributions from unexpected places. Alexis Bielaskis, the four-man for Wisconsin, made 5 threes from the power forward spot. In the previous 7 games, he made 5 threes leading up until the Michigan game on Saturday in Ann Arbor. And again, I think if you're looking now at what this means for Wisconsin moving forward, it's another team from the Big Ten that's firmly now in the NCAA tournament picture. And I also think the backcourt for Wisconsin, Nick Boyd, who a couple of years ago was a part of a team at Florida Atlantic that went to the Final Four, played at San Diego State last year, and John Blackwell continues to be a lethal combination. And John Blackwell, to me, I'm not ready to say he is going to be John Tunji like he was a year ago, who became an All-American player. But Blackwell, to me, is one of the least appreciated guards in college basketball. He went for 26 against Michigan, 4 of 8 from 3, 9 of 16 from the field. You're looking at a player who isn't getting the attention of some of the other great guards in college basketball, but I think much like John Tunji a year ago, could go from an afterthought to a potential all Big Ten first-team caliber player. But you know as well as I do, this is only January 12th. Now, Michigan was obviously the team that the compass pointed to for people from the periphery because the margin of victory was so staggering for the Wolverines up until last week. But I think in the process, Arizona's dominance has been a bit understated. Now, the Wildcats started this season as a team that, again, was ranked in the top 10 to 15, as it should have been, but there was a lot of questions after what Arizona lost from last year's team that went to the Sweet 16 and lost to Duke. And Arizona also had several key wins to start the season. Opening night against Florida in Las Vegas, a breakout performance by Koa Pete. The win against UCLA at Intuit Dome, where Arizona trailed by 8 with 7 to play. The road win in mid-November at UConn, where Arizona got out of Gamble Pavilion with a close win, but Braylon Mullins and Tarris Reed did not play. So much when people talked about Arizona this season, even though they were undefeated, even though they kept winning, so much was talked about the fact, well, Arizona went to Stores and won, but UConn wasn't at full strength. We were missing the headline. We were missing really what makes this team right now as complete a unit as there is in the sport. Since Arizona went to Gamble Pavilion and beat UConn, it has won 11 games by an average of 18 points per game. And I think the difficult thing now about what we're going to see out of the Wildcats moving forward, and this particularly relates to their opponents. Arizona's balance, to me, is uncanny. Arizona's balance, to me, is staggering. Because Tommy Lloyd, and I saw this when I was in Tucson during the preseason at a practice, built an 8-man rotation. As of today, 7 players on Arizona's team are averaging between 8.8 points per game and 14.8 points per game. Arizona is not dependent on one player who has to play well for Arizona to beat really good competition. And since that UConn game, Arizona has beaten handedly Alabama, Auburn, San Diego State, and every team that has played in the Big 12. Since the UConn win, every single win has been by double figures. And Arizona's upcoming schedule at 16-0 is the following. Arizona State at home, at UCF, Cincinnati at home, and then West Virginia at home in a game that will be on CBS. And I think things are aligning right now for Arizona to be 20-0 when it plays at BYU coming up on the 26th. And that would be obviously an epic matchup in a Big 12 now that, to me, has major star power at the top. And I think if you look at the Big 12 in the Big 10 right now, there's 5 teams in each that all feel like today they have legitimate chances to be top 16 seeds on Selection Sunday. Look at the Big 12. Iowa State, Arizona, Houston, BYU, Texas Tech. Look at the Big 10. Michigan, Purdue, Nebraska, Illinois, Michigan State. Those 10 teams could easily be among the top 16 seeds on Selection Sunday. And for Tommy Lloyd now as a coach, he is, again, putting Arizona in a place to be a high seed in the NCAA tournament. He just became a head coach in 2021, and he has, again, done what we have seen coaches do at the University of Arizona. Sean Miller did a great job at Arizona, led Arizona to 3 Elite Eights. 2011, lost to UConn on the final play of the game. 2014, lost to Wisconsin on the final play of the game. Lost to Wisconsin in 15 as well. And Tommy Lloyd would tell you that he knows that Arizona has to now, at some point here, get beyond the Sweet 16 because that is yet to happen under his watch. Last year, Arizona started out 4-5, turned it around, went to the Sweet 16. The year before, Arizona was a 2 seed, lost to Clemson in the Sweet 16. 2023, 2 seed, lost to Princeton. And then 2022, 1 seed, lost to Houston in the Sweet 16. But sooner or later, if you are constantly at bat and you keep winning like Tommy Lloyd is winning, sooner or later you're going to break through. You're going to get past the Sweet 16. You're going to get to a Final Four. Now, talk about being at bat. There has been no more unexpected at bat in college basketball than what's going on right now at Nebraska. And Nebraska continues to outdo itself with every single game. Is Fred Hoiberg the National Coach of the Year as of today? We'll break that all down when we return. Jon Rothstein here at Inside College Basketball Now on CBS Sports Network. All right, Jon Rothstein back here on Inside College Basketball Now on CBS Sports Network. Our second big thing of the day, Nebraska is the best story in college basketball. And as of today, Fred Hoiberg is the National Coach of the Year favorite. Now, it's only January 12th, and there's a number of other great coaches in college basketball doing incredible, incredible things. Tommy Lloyd at Arizona, Dusty May at Michigan, Dan Hurley at UConn, TJ Otzelberger at Iowa State, Mark Byington at Vanderbilt. But the difference is Fred Hoiberg is doing things right now at a program that is nowhere near relevant on an annual basis, and that's just a fact of life. I know that Nebraska went to the NCAA tournament 2 years ago. I know that Nebraska has been competitive over the last couple of years. But I'm telling you right now, we are seeing right now something we have never seen before, at least in my lifetime, and it's Nebraska basketball not just make a push towards the NCAA tournament, but beat some of the biggest brands in the sport. Nebraska already this season, it's only January 12th, has beaten Ohio State, Indiana, and Michigan State in basketball. Nebraska already has won road games at Illinois, Ohio State, and Indiana. Nebraska has dominated Wisconsin. Nebraska has dominated Creighton. This is stuff we haven't seen before. And that is why this story, the story about an athletic department that for me was always known for football in the mid-90s with Tom Osborne, Tommy Frazier, Lawrence Phillips, Amon Green, all those guys. It was probably the last time I followed college football 3 decades ago. But now we are seeing Nebraska not just be the feel-good story, not just be a team again that, is happy to be there. Nebraska is putting together a resume that is reflective of a team that's going to go into the NCAA tournament with a very high seed. Now, there's a long way to go. But Nebraska right now is 16-0. And Nebraska, as you see the upcoming schedule right there, Nebraska is still playing in the Big Ten. We know that Nebraska will play 16 more games before it plays an NCAA tournament game because they're at least going to get one in the Big Ten tournament. But even if Nebraska were to go 10-6 the rest of the way, Nebraska would be 26-6 going into the NCAA tournament. And with that resume, that would yield a 2 or a 3 seed, just spitballing here. But I was thinking about the historical context, about just how unique this is. And sometimes when you see something for the first time, it captivates you. It's different. It's unique. It's fresh. Movies came out, throughout the course of time. Steven Spielberg in 1993 made Jurassic Park. It was the first time we could go to a movie theater and see dinosaurs eating people. People want to see that. You're telling me Nebraska could be a 2 or 3 seed in the NCAA tournament? People want to see that. But I am going to give you context right now about just how unique it is what Fred Hoiberg is doing. In the 1991 NCAA tournament, Nebraska was a 3 seed under Danny Nee. It lost to Xavier in the first round of the NCAA tournament and a coach named Pete Gillen. Since that time, Nebraska entered the NCAA tournament as the following seeds. In 92, it was an 8 seed. In 93, it was a 10 seed. In 94, it was a 6 seed. In 98, it was an 11 seed. That's all under Danny Nee. And then in 2014, under Tim Miles, it was an 11 seed. And in 2024, under Fred Hoiberg, it was an 8 seed. Now think about this. Since 1991, which now is 35 years ago, Nebraska has never had a single-digit loss season in men's basketball. And Nebraska isn't there yet, but it's on a path to get there. This is something we may never see again in our lifetime, but it's also a byproduct on why college sports have been balanced out by name, image, and likeness. You have people changing their roster year in and year out, whether it's the Blue Bloods or other programs, and you're not going to see rhythm, chemistry, and continuity. Nebraska has 4 of its 5 starters who entered this season with working knowledge of the Huskers program. Jamarcus Lawrence, Sam Hoiberg, Berke Buchtenschel, and also Rink Mast. These aren't highly touted players. Jamarcus Lawrence was an under-the-radar recruit. Rink Mast was a very good player at Bradley before he came to Nebraska. Berke Buchtenschel originally started at UCLA. He's turned out to be a good role player. Price Sandfort, the transfer from Iowa, has been a perfect fit for Fred Hoiberg's system. But now you are starting to see that this team's cohesion has played a major role. There was a player, and I wrote about him today in my daily column, The Breakfast Buffet, which hits Twitter every day at 9 a.m. Eastern. Braden Frager, a Lincoln kid who redshirted last year for Nebraska, but was also in the program, who came off the bench in Saturday's win at Indiana, where Nebraska trailed by 16 points, and he came off and he got 11-4. But he was in the program last year. For the college coach out there that is trying to navigate this climate, and it's so difficult to navigate because you have, at the end of every year, players who are playing a lot who will leave and test the portal. Then you have players who are not playing a lot who will leave and test the portal. The most important thing to do if you are running a college basketball program is to find out which 3, 4, 5 guys you can get back and you want in your program and you can keep as a foundation. Because Nebraska is a blueprint for that. You're seeing it in these close games. 6-0 in games decided by 6 points or fewer. And there's a lot of basketball to be played. We've got a lot of basketball to be played. It's 62 days away right now from Selection Sunday. But if you're asking me who would be my national coach of the year, it's not close. It's Fred Hoiberg. Tommy Lloyd is doing a great job at Arizona. Arizona's been a great program for a long time. TJ Otzelberger's doing a great job at Iowa State. Iowa State had great teams with Larry Eustachy. Iowa State had great teams with Fred Hoiberg. Dan Hurley's doing a great job, as usual, at UConn. Dusty May is doing a great job at Michigan. These are tradition-rich programs. Mark Byington doing a great job at Vanderbilt. But I also remember Vanderbilt going to the Sweet 16 with Kevin Stallings in 2004 and 2007. It's been a while for Vanderbilt basketball. It hasn't had consistent, really, success since Kevin Stallings went from Vanderbilt to Pitt in 2016. And Vanderbilt then went and hired Bryce Drew. But now, to me, the story in college basketball revolves around Pinnacle Bank Arena. The story revolves around Fred Hoiberg. And we will see what type of staying power that Nebraska has in the Big Ten. Has a winnable game coming up next against an Oregon team that's obviously been shorthanded this season. Nate Biddle's been out of the lineup. Jackson Shellstad's been out of the lineup. But we are seeing now, in my opinion, a major story emerge. And the thing that's fascinating is this. Fred Hoiberg has not taken a direct path to get to Nebraska. He got hired at Iowa State as a head coach from a front office job in the NBA. Did a great job at Iowa State. Incredible job at Iowa State. He then went to the Chicago Bulls and was fired from the Bulls, came back to college at Nebraska, and had a really tough couple of years out of the gate. But he completely changed his coaching style from what got him to multiple Big 12 tournament titles and one Sweet 16 at Iowa State to now be better suited to winning the Big Ten. Nebraska, in mid-February last year, looked like it was on a path to go to back-to-back NCAA tournaments, but really stumbled late and didn't just miss the NCAA tournament, missed the Big Ten tournament, because last year, only 15 of the 18 teams in the Big Ten qualified. And now, you are seeing again a coach who is at a place that has never won an NCAA tournament game, writing the best story that we are now documenting during the 25-26 college basketball season. But you know as well as I do, this is only January. One thing we're seeing, too, across college basketball, the way the climate is with name, image, and likeness, unexpected places are all of a sudden becoming major players in the sport. So it brings up the question, how many true blue bloods are left in college basketball? I'll break all of that down and more when we return. Jon Rothstein here on Inside College Basketball Now on CBS Sports Network. All right, Jon Rothstein back here on Inside College Basketball Now on CBS Sports Network. I want to remind you to subscribe to Inside College Basketball Now on both Apple and Spotify. We want to be your Bible for the college basketball season and beyond. We are the only college basketball podcast coming to you 52 weeks out of the calendar year. Also want to remind you to like and subscribe to Inside College Basketball Now on YouTube. We want to get up to 400 likes on this show. And again, remember, we need an army with us for each and every installment of Inside College Basketball Now, and we need you to be all you can be. And I also want to offer the programming note that each and every Monday during the 25-26 college basketball season, and each and every Thursday, unless there's a holiday conflict, Inside College Basketball Now will be bringing you a live show at 1 o'clock Eastern on those 2 days, Mondays and Thursdays. And if you can't be with us at 1 o'clock Eastern, make us part of your commute home or your early morning workout on Apple or Spotify. And also remember, in addition to those two shows, we are going to be bringing you additional episodes with exclusive interviews with some of the biggest and best names in the sport. Now, I was just talking about Nebraska and how name, image, and likeness has leveled out college sports across the board, which is now giving these other programs opportunities to compete with programs that previously they had a really hard time competing with. So it brings up the question, how many programs in college basketball are still operating at a true blue blood level? I mean the biggest brands in the sport. I mean high seeds always in the NCAA tournament. Duke for sure is going to be on the list. Duke's infrastructure, Duke's talent base, Duke's everything is going to be at the top of this list. Jon Scheyer has done a remarkable job taking over for Mike Krzyzewski. UConn, of course, under Dan Hurley, is going to be on this list. The Huskies' 2-year run to multiple national championships in 23-24 was the most dominant 2-year run we've seen a back-to-back national champion have in college basketball. Those 12 victories were by over 21 points per game. UConn, again, has a chance to go 3 out of 4 this year. And I also want to point out, I know last season was a disappointing one for UConn. Remember, and I know that UConn's point guard play was not up to par, but remember that Liam McNeely, a first-round pick and UConn's best player, essentially missed the entire month of January. North Carolina is getting back to that level, North Carolina, we still don't know just how good this team is yet. We know they have probably the best 4 or 5 in college basketball with Henry Vessar and also Caleb Wilson. But North Carolina right now in year 5 under Hubert Davis, and we talked about this with Hubert Davis when he was a guest on the show. North Carolina prior to this season, for the 4 years that Hubert Davis was the head coach, twice was in the mix to win a national championship. In 2022, it went to the national title game, had a big lead on Kansas in the title game, had a chance to obviously tie the game on the last possession, came up just short against the Jayhawks. 2023, after being the preseason number 1, missed the NCAA tournament. 2024, North Carolina was a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, lost a heartbreaker to Alabama in the Sweet 16. And then last season, got into the first 4, beat San Diego State, and lost to Ole Miss. So this season is going to go a long ways in dictating where North Carolina, in my opinion, is going to be viewed in terms of being one of the best programs in the country, one of the best teams in the country, or just obviously a tad below that. But Carolina obviously has weathered the storm, at least for now. Now, you look at other programs in college basketball that have been labeled, quote-unquote, blue bloods over the years, and you look at how they've been effective recently by the playing field being leveled out, and it's staggering. Kansas already has 5 losses, and Kansas still has 7 games remaining, I believe, against Iowa State, Texas Tech, BYU, Houston, and also Iowa State. The Iowa State game is going to be on Tuesday at Allen Fieldhouse. So Arizona, Iowa State, BYU, Houston, Texas Tech. Kansas, I believe, has 7 more regular season games remaining. Kansas, prior to this season, lost double-digit games in each of the previous 2 seasons. That's the first time that's happened under Bill Self. Ohio State, who was obviously at the top of college basketball with Thad Matta, Ohio State has not been to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament since 2013. That is a long time. That is over a decade. What about Indiana? Indiana, again, in my opinion, and I've said this for a long time, I'm always curious, does Indiana have a truly great program, or did Indiana have a truly great and all-time coach in Bob Knight, who won a national title in 76, who won a national title in 81, and won a national title in 87, and also went to the Final Four in 1992 and lost to Duke 81-78 in Minneapolis. Since Bob Knight, Mike Davis took the Hoosiers to the national championship game in 2002. He was Bob Knight's assistant. After that, Kelvin Sampson was hired, only lasted a couple of years. Tom Crean took over, did a great job at Indiana. 3 Sweet 16s, 2 outright Big Ten regular season titles, but there was an appetite for change after about a decade. He was fired. Archie Miller goes there from Dayton, doesn't make the NCAA tournament. He lasts 4 years. Mike Woodson comes, an alum, and makes the NCAA tournament, wins a couple of games in the NCAA tournament. He's pushed out. And now Darren DeVries is doing a good job. He's got a nice team, but I don't know if people think about Indiana like a traditional blue blood. Michigan State is getting back, in my opinion, under Tom Izzo a little bit. Michigan State was obviously a program 25 plus years ago that went to 3 straight Final Fours, 99, won a national title in 2000, went to the Final Four as well in 2001, lost to Arizona. Michigan State in 21 lost in the first 4 to UCLA, and in 2022 it lost in the second round to Duke. 2023 went to a Sweet 16, lost to Kansas State. 2024 went to the NCAA tournament, lost to Carolina in the second round. But the last 2 years under Tom Izzo, Michigan State has regained its status, in my opinion, as being one of the more consistent programs in the sport at the top. Michigan State, in the last 2 years, is 44-9 under Tom Izzo. And then there's UCLA, who, again, has had pockets of great national success under Mick Cronin, Ben Howland. But we also have to remember this. Everybody compares UCLA to John Wooden, and that's the standard. John Wooden stopped coaching in 1975. That's 50 years ago. The Bruins have won 1 national title since, in 1995. Ben Howland went to 3 straight Final Fours in 2006. through 2008. Mick Cronin went to a Final Four in 2021 and may have went to one or two more if he did not have major injuries to Jaime Jaquez, Jalen Clark, and Adem Bona in 22 and 23. But the UCLA fans out there are not giving great support. UCLA's infrastructure is not built with the resources needed to succeed, like a Kentucky, like a Duke, or a Carolina, or a Kansas. I mean, UCLA, during the start of name, image, and likeness, had none. And Mick Cronin had to go and field the team through European prospects and so on and so forth. And that's one of the main reasons why the program was set back. But these programs that were labeled quote-unquote blue bloods don't feel like quote-unquote blue bloods anymore. You got UConn, you got Duke, you obviously got Kentucky because of the resources, the backing, the interest, all of it, and Carolina as well I would put in that conversation. But Carolina obviously is still trying to get back to the place it was about 2 years ago when it was a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. But name, image, and likeness and the ability for other programs to give people the compensation that they desire, the usage that they desire, it's what everything is right now. That's why you're seeing BYU, Texas Tech, St. John's all of a sudden put these rosters together. St. John's prior to last season had not won an NCAA tournament game since 2000. Texas Tech is all of a sudden a job again, and credit Chris Beard for doing this, that can compete with the best of the country because of the resources it has. Chris Beard took Texas Tech to the national title game in 2019. It changed everything. Everything. And BYU, you have to remember this, a couple of years ago, was in the West Coast Conference, and now it's a place that's landing some of the best players out there. BYU got the top high school player in the country in A.J. DeBanza. It got a great transfer in Rob Wright because all we look at now is what kids care about. Am I going to get usage? Am I going to get an opportunity to play a high number of minutes? And am I going to be in a situation where I am going to be compensated? The allure before NIL of going to a blue blood and wearing the colors and being a part of that is not what it once was. There's only a couple places still doing it at a certain level. And many of those places are going to be ranked very, very high in this week's AP Top 25. But it wouldn't be an Inside College Basketball Now without a Rothstein reaction. That's on the other side when we return. Jon Rothstein here on Inside College Basketball Now on CBS Sports Network. All right, Jon Rothstein back here on Inside College Basketball Now on CBS Sports Network. Every single Monday, we dissect, digest, and offer some perspective live on what the AP poll looks like for that week. I've been an AP voter for a long time. So without further ado, here's this week's Rothstein reaction. And let's look right now at what the AP voters have put into this week's poll. Arizona at 1, Iowa State at 2, UConn at 3. I have UConn at 2 because, as I noted in the start, UConn did not have Braylon Mullins or Taris Reed when UConn lost to Arizona at Gamble Pavilion. So I don't hate Iowa State at 2, but I voted UConn number 2. Michigan at 4, Purdue at 5, Duke at 6. This is what I have. I have Michigan at 6, and then I have Duke ahead of Purdue, and I'm going to tell you why. Duke's loss to Texas Tech came on a neutral court. Michigan and Purdue lost home games. Purdue lost to the team in Iowa State that's ranked above them. Michigan lost to an unranked Wisconsin team. So I have Michigan further down about 6. Houston is at 7. I don't hate that. I do not have Houston at 7. I have Nebraska at 7. Nebraska is at 8. Gonzaga is at 9. I have Nebraska, Gonzaga, Houston. And then 10 is Vanderbilt. Again, I don't hate that. I have Michigan State there, so that's not awful. BYU is at 11. Illinois is at 13. I have Illinois at 13 as well. Carolina's at 14. I believe I have Texas Tech at 14. Texas Tech's going to be 15. Virginia is all the way up to 16. I don't have that yet. I have Virginia, I believe, at 18. Arkansas, Alabama, Florida, Louisville, Georgia. That aligns to where I'm at. Clemson, Utah State, Tennessee, and Seton Hall makes the top 25. All right, this is what I'm going to say. I don't have a problem with any of that. Utah State to me, and I love Jared Calhoun. He's done a great job there. I have a hard time giving programs like Utah State a nod, at least right now, until we see more than just a month's work of success in conference play. And we're not even a month into conference play, but I'm going to tell you why. From a resume perspective, in terms of who have you beaten and who have you not beaten, I know that Utah State is off to a great start. I know that Utah State went to the NCAA tournament last year, and I love their team. Collins, Fallslev, Colby King. But if I'm looking at Utah State versus a team like SMU that has beaten North Carolina, a team like SMU that went to Duke and played Duke to the wire without Boopy Miller, who's one of the best guards in the ACC, I tend to give the benefit of the doubt to that team. Now, I firmly understand wanting, especially in this climate where so much is geared towards the power conferences, to salute non-power conference schools. But if you're looking at it from a resume perspective, in terms of who have you beaten and who have you not beaten, I know the power conferences get more opportunities. I'm aware of that. But there's multiple schools right now, and I think Utah State, because it plays in the Mountain West, is a leg above some of these other schools. If you're asking me who are the best non-power conference teams in college basketball, it's Gonzaga, it's St. Mary's, it's Utah State, and I would give the nod to St. Louis. But I'll also say this. St. Louis out of the Atlantic 10 is having a great season under Josh Schertz. He was the coach that took Indiana State to the brink of the NCAA tournament 2 years, lost to Drake in the Arch Madness title game. And St. Louis, I know this because they called me during the offseason, has a really, really hard time getting games. St. Louis, though, if you're looking at it objectively, its best wins so far this season are Santa Clara on a neutral court, at VCU, Grand Canyon, and I know it lost a heartbreaker to Stanford, and that's the one loss. But if I'm evaluating this fair and objectively, it's hard for me to put teams like that ahead of a team like Villanova until we see, in my opinion, what happens about a month into conference play. Because once we start to see teams have 7, 8, 9 losses at the power conference level, then you see a little bit more of the warts exposed. Love Utah State. Love the addition of MJ Collins. Happy for them that they are ranked in the top 25. But for me, I'm taking a little bit more of a wait-and-see approach because this is only January. Some news and notes from around the world of college basketball when we return. Jon Rothstein here on Inside College Basketball Now. All right, Jon Rothstein back here on Inside College Basketball Now on CBS Sports Network. Going to bring you now some news and notes from around the world of college basketball. Set the table for what should be another great week in the greatest sport we have on our planet. 3 good nuggets. Nugget number 1, Sampson's dominance. Under Kelvin Sampson, Houston in Big 12 regular season games is 37-4. Houston's winning percentage in Big 12 regular season games since joining the league a couple of years ago is better than it was in its last few years as a member of the American Athletic Conference, which is simply ridiculous. One big thing to keep in mind when it comes to the Cougars long term. Houston relinquished its place as the host school in the South region of the NCAA tournament. That means that Houston, if it winds up in the South region on Selection Sunday, will be eligible to play Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games at the Toyota Center in downtown Houston. This is a big, big wrinkle to remember going into the NCAA tournament. Nugget number 2, back on track. I'm talking about NC State's Darian Williams. The ACC preseason Player of the Year was in a bit of a slump, but in 2 wins last week on the road for NC State at Boston College and also Florida State, Williams averaged 21.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. That is the player that Will Wade and company thought they were going to get. That is the player that we saw play so well for Texas Tech last March in the NCAA tournament before transferring and winding up at NC State. Nugget number 3, setting the table. Purdue's Braden Smith has tallied 55 assists in his last 5 games. We know he's the best point guard in the sport. We know he is a special player. But understand this, even if Purdue wins the national championship, we only have about 12 weeks left with Braden Smith. So take the pictures and put them away. This is a special, special college basketball player. 5 games to watch for this week in college basketball. We're going to start with a number of them on Tuesday. Virginia's at Louisville, UConn's at Seton Hall, Indiana at Michigan State, Iowa State at Kansas. Wednesday, we've got Iowa at Purdue. This is a big week for Virginia and Ryan Odom. I'm curious to find out, are the Cavaliers just a team that are going to make the NCAA tournament this year, or are they going to be a legitimate contender at the top of the league? After the Louisville game, Virginia's going to have to play at SMU. UConn and Seton Hall, 2 teams now that are ranked in the top 25. UConn has had a lot of problems with Seton Hall in New Jersey the last couple of years. UConn obviously looking to win this game, add another quad 1 victory. Indiana and Michigan State, you heard me talk about Tom Izzo and Michigan State, 44-9 over the last couple of years. Iowa State and Kansas could not be juicier. Cyclones 16-0. Kansas already has 5 losses. The Darren Peterson saga continues. Is he in the lineup? Is he out of the lineup? Is he going to be in a situation where he finishes games? It is one of the most bizarre things I've seen in all my years covering college basketball. Iowa State obviously has been a machine under TJ Otzelberger. Iowa at Purdue. Ben McCullum's team lost a really tough game Sunday at home against Illinois. Also lost last week at Minnesota. Bennett Sturtz, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, is as valuable to his team as any player is in college basketball. Let's go to 5 under-the-radar games now as we continue to set the table. Tuesday, you got Texas A&M at Tennessee. Bucky McMillan doing a nice job with the Aggies. Wednesday, Vanderbilt at Texas. Also Wednesday, Carolina at Stanford, Duke at Cal, and TCU at BYU. Texas, in year 1 under Sean Miller, got its season back on Saturday by going on the road and beating Alabama. Texas now has a win on its resume on the road at Alabama and on a neutral site against NC State. The Longhorns can add another quad 1 victory on Wednesday in Austin. You see Carolina and Duke going to Stanford and Cal. This is an interesting type of week for the 2 blue blood programs out of the Triangle. This is the first time since Stanford and Cal have been members of the ACC that Carolina and Duke have went west and played conference games in the Pacific time zone. And then Wednesday, TCU, fresh off a week where it played both Kansas and Arizona and lost both games. The Kansas game was a heartbreaker. Magic at Allen Fieldhouse. TCU goes to Provo to take on BYU, a team that might be a bit underrated nationally. BYU has only lost 1 time this season. It was in Boston against UConn in November. Kay Bakeda, the starting 5-man for the Cougars, left that game due to an injury. Kennard Davis did not play in that game. BYU is about to get into the guts of the Big 12. It obviously continues this week against TCU, but so many different storylines coming to the forefront. So many different storylines emerging. None better than what's going on in Nebraska. But also know that each and every time along the way, we are going to be here with you documenting all of it. So again, I want to remind you, Inside College Basketball Now is the only college basketball podcast coming to you 52 weeks out of the calendar year. We need an army with us for each and every show. Be all you can be. Subscribe on Apple, on Spotify, and on YouTube. And again, remember, this is only January.